All right, let's start it right off the top with one of the craziest trades that I have ever seen happen with Myles Garrett going to the Rams. I think when you talk about generational players in their prime heading to contenders, you can really count on your fingers how many times it's really happened. And for the Rams to receive Myles Garrett, was just one of the craziest days for me. We started the whole brand yesterday, and I was scrambling trying to get videos out on what I should record about this. Let's talk about the trade itself. The Rams get Myles Garrett, and the Browns, they will get Jared Verse, which is a great young piece on the defensive line, and they're also going to get 3 first-round picks. So they get the 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 second-round pick, and a 2029 third-round pick. And off tops, I wanted to get your guys' opinions on which team do you think kind of came out better of this. I think it's easy to kind of say that Myles Garrett is on the team, and therefore that's going to be better. But when you look at the haul that the Browns got, do you guys think that was sufficient enough? Do you guys think that this was an even trade, or do you think this kind of like leaned one way or the other? We'll start with Daniel.
Me personally, I think it was a bit of a fleece on the Rams end, just for the fact that you were able to only give up 1 first for a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, reigning Defensive Player of the Year at that. So just the fact that only 1 first-round pick, and you lost a decent linebacker, but you got the best defensive player maybe not in our times, but
I mean,
I guess
yesterday I called
now.
him the best defensive end in the 21st century. I think it's no argument about that.
You see, me being a Steelers fan, it's hard for me to say that. But I am glad he's out of my division now, so I don't have to worry about that no more.
Yeah. Sergio?
Yeah, I think you could look at this in 2 ways for these teams. I mean, obviously short term, I think the Rams are going all in. Obviously, Seattle just won the Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers reloaded a bit in this past offseason, and now the Rams are making moves. They already added Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson to their defense, and their defense was already really good. So this is just showing for the short term they want to maximize Matthew Stafford's time with them. And then you look at it on the Browns side, they're still, I mean, it feels like they've always been preparing for the future, but they're preparing for the future with this trade. They got 3 picks. I thought they could have got a 2 first-round picks and like that second and third, but I think these picks seem sufficient enough. They got a haul basically, and Jared Verse on top of that, a great young edge rusher as well. So I think the Rams are setting themselves up for success, especially after they can get out of that Deshaun Watson deal and everything. So.
Yeah, for sure. I was on ESPN Fresno yesterday, and I was like, the Cardinals being in this division feels like a human rights violation. And I think whatever you just said is the reason why for that. I wanted to kind of switch it because I actually think that this is a pretty even trade. I think that the Browns, I love what they're doing. This last draft and the draft before that, getting the next generation for this team, it's kind of setting up this team to be ready for a quarterback. I think that a lot of the times you see teams that are in like high draft positions, they take quarterbacks way too early in the process, and they don't set them up for success. I think, prime examples is kind of like Josh Rosen when he went to the Cardinals. I think regardless of the player itself, because I don't know if Josh Rosen was ever better than any of the other players, even though he was confident in himself. I don't think he was ever set up for success there. And I think you see this all the time within franchises. And I think finally the Browns, you look at what they've added over the last couple of years through the draft. You got Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion, 2 great wide receivers in this year's draft. You got Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson in last year's draft. And so that part of the field is kind of set. Harold Fannon's also on this team, who I really liked last year. And then the offensive line. Spencer Fano is an amazing add for an offensive line that I thought was kind of on a downturn, and I think they're going back up into that upper echelon of offensive lines. And then the defense, you don't even have to speak about the defense. That defense is ridiculous. They have the defensive rookie of the year in Carson Schlesinger. You get Jared Verse now, which obviously you're not in generational territory with Jared Verse, but he is going into his third year. On the Rams side of things, I think this is a complete game changer. You have a player in Myles Garrett that changes that defensive line from good to generational, and so I think that they're going to feast with that. I saw a stat the other day, and it was like Jared Verse, he had 7.5 sacks last year. He has, I believe, 12 sacks in his career, and between weeks 8 and 12 last year, Myles Garrett had 13 sacks. And that kind of talks to like what Daniel was talking about, how it's ridiculous that he's out of his division. So, happy days for you, right? But that just kind of goes to show the difference of this kind of player. And the last thing I wanted to talk about this was, I think Cleveland going into this next generation, what are your expectations now for both teams? But let's start with specifically with Cleveland going into next year.
So with Cleveland, I'm still iffy about. Yeah, they've obviously drafted very well these past couple years, but I just don't. Obviously, last year didn't show the results. But my main issue is they have so many quarterbacks, but they can't seem to just choose who to pick, and that's the main problem of this
drafted
team.
Another one this year, the Taylor Green.
Exactly. So like I don't. There's no consistency with this quarterback room, and I feel like that drives a lot of division in this locker room because they don't know who your quarterback is your leader. And the fact that you only have young guys in that locker room and they're all fighting for this spot, I don't think it's a practical way to run a team. Like Joe Flacco was there, but Joe Flacco can only do so much.
What a run that was, right? Joe Flacco, Cleveland Browns. Yeah. I mean, that was just insane just elite. To bottle it up.
Only Browns quarterback I'll ever love.
That's funny. I mean, for me personally, I think the Browns' expectations goes up a little bit. I actually think that the way that they're set up right now, if Deshaun Watson can actually like play this year, he's been looking good in OTAs. I might have them ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals, which is crazy for me to say because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins is probably the best trio of quarterback and weapons out there. And I just hate what they've been doing over the last couple of drafts. But I think, with the young players that they have, that defense is still great. If they can get some sort of production out of that offense, I think I could see a world where they finish in the division third or even second, right? If the Steelers drop off this year. So
that's crazy.
I that's kind of where I'm sitting in terms of the expectations for Browns. Sergio?
Yeah, I think if Deshaun Watson somehow reverts back to his Houston days, then maybe that could happen.
Houston Deshaun?
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen him on the field. Obviously, he's dealt with a variety of injuries and then all that off the field stuff too. And that's obviously affected his game. He hasn't been out on the field. He's rusty. But
yeah,
I still think he can be like at least serviceable. I don't think there's any way that he could be worse than Dylan Gabriel was last year. So they can win some games. I think their defense is, kind of their whole identity right now. I like what they're doing there. Their line is solid. I think they did a decent job with, replacing all those players who had every contract expiring on that line. And then they brought in 2 young receivers as well. So it seems like they have a plan for everything else except the quarterback position, which I find kind of funny. But I mean, if they can land their guy in this year's draft, then that kind of all goes away. And they're setting themselves up to do that a little bit with this trade. But I mean, we'll see how far down the draft how high in the draft they fall based on, their quarterback play now.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about what the Rams are thinking, like their first round pick is going to be basically a second round pick. It's going to be the 32nd pick of the first round. That's what their expectation is. And so giving away that first round pick plus a second and a third, I think is fine for the Rams side of things. And I think for the Browns, I think it's kind of I like the way that they've done everything. I like the timeline. You know, you get your offensive line, your defense is there already. Now you get the weapons, and I think finally this team is, as I said earlier, I think they're ready for a quarterback. It is quite funny the process that they've taken, because now they have, I think, 4 quarterbacks on the roster again this year that are genuinely vying for those 3 spots, and they could end up in whatever order you can possibly think. I think Deshaun Watson is going to be on this team. I think the one guy, it's going to be between Taylor Green and Dylan Gabriel. I mean, we're going to talk about third string quarterbacks, but it's still going to be a thing, because this team runs through quarterbacks like it's nobody's business. On the Rams side of things, I think it's an amazing move. As I said, Les Snead and Sean McVay have done this so well over the last couple of years, and as a Niners fan, I'm kind of jealous a little bit of that aspect of them, because they have gone all in. They went all in 2021. They won their Super Bowl, and a lot of people thought that the year after, when they absolutely tanked, they were probably going to be done for a very long time. And look at them. They've gotten some great value in later rounds. They were able to draft really well. And I think that's part of the reason why they are back. I mean, you get Puka Nacua in a later round. I think it was the 5th round, but I might be mistaken about that.
He was a later round pick.
You get, Kyron Williams and all of these offensive linemen in these later rounds, and now you're able to kind of stack upon an MVP quarterback that's at the end of his career and try and go for another Super Bowl. So I think it's an absolute masterclass by Les Snead. I think that again, I think this defense becomes unguardable. I don't know how you're going to be able to block all of those guys. You still have Kobe Turner and Byron Young, and Poona Ford is still there. Braden Fisk is still there. And to add Myles Garrett to that is going to be disgusting. I wanted to ask you guys, where do you think that it is Super Bowl or bust for the Rams this year?
I'd say yes, only because I feel like this year will probably be Stafford's last full year. I think.
You think this is Stafford's last year? I think Stafford's probably going to play. I feel like Stafford can play one more year after this.
I think Stafford can too, but I feel like they would take more of the approach of trying to get Ty Simpson into that starting quarterback role next year.
Yeah.
With the mentoring and everything like that, I could see that coming into play, letting Stafford play half the season next year, and with Ty coming in later in. But that's all depending on how they're doing, season standings, everything like that. But yeah, I really do think it's Super Bowl or bust. But if they don't win, I think they have like a 3-year window.
Okay.
Yeah, I 100% think this is Super Bowl or bust for them. You don't make a move like this unless your goal is to win the entire thing that same year that you make a move like this. And then considering Stafford's age, I know they did extend him a couple more seasons, but he's getting up there in age. He is coming off of that MVP season as well, but showing he still has some left in the tank. But Stafford's a family guy. He might want to, hang it up after this year. They are already looking towards the future with their draft pick and Ty Simpson as well. So absolutely, this is 100% Super Bowl bust for them.
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess it is a stupid question at the end of the day, because sure, I think when you have a player in a hall like this, they still have Trent McDuffie, which is crazy. That it is basically Super Bowl or bust, but they got to the NFC Championship last year, and I just felt like they continue to just add talent to this team, and so that's where I question Super Bowl or bust, because I do agree. I think their window just becomes that much more open going into the next couple of years. There's another trade that happened that I think kind of got lost in the sauce. It was the A.J. Brown to the Patriots trade. I mean, just to quickly hit on this, I think that this is from the Patriots perspective, Drake May gets his wide receiver 1, and for a guy that I think has a beautiful outside the hashes ball, whether it's on go balls or out routes, I think A.J. Brown's going to feast in this offense, and now you have a trio of wide receivers in you still have Kayshon Boutte back, and Romeo Doubs is on this team. along with the alpha in A.J. Brown, that I think he's going to get a boatload of targets there in New England. Do you guys think that he has an opportunity to be wide receiver 1 in terms of the receiving yards this year?
I think so. I think just because of what he's able to play, being able to,
Yeah.
where he is, how good he is at the outside, I just think that is where Drake May throws best, in my opinion. And I think him being able to be a good route runner on the outside, just,
Yeah.
getting open like he does, I think that makes him wide receiver 1. I think he's better than what Stephon Diggs ever was for this team.
Oh,
That's
easily.
my
Yeah.
opinion. But just in general, I think this suits him for his career as well as Drake May being able to just be a better quarterback.
Mm. I think Sergio froze up. Oh, no, he's right there. Well, anyways, I'll get to my thoughts on this. I think that for the Eagles' sake, I think that this is quite a peculiar kind of trade and draft, because you get Mekhi Lemon in the draft to be A.J. Brown's replacement per se, and I think that Mekhi Lemon is really good at running inside the hash routes, quick routes to the middle part of the field, and I think that's going to force Jalen Hurts to be a little bit of a different quarterback than he usually has been, right? And I think that with Jalen Hurts having a little bit of a downturn in his accuracy, you saw that towards the latter end of the year. Maybe he can pick it up this year, and maybe he does, change that offense around. But I think at the time frame that Jalen Hurts is in right now, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Eagles offense to replicate the highs that they had during that Super Bowl year with A.J. Brown. Sergio, do you think the same?
Yeah, 100%. I think A.J. Brown can be wide receiver 1 with them in terms of yards. The Patriots also signed Romeo Doubs, and that'll cut into the yardage. But I think he's easily the number 1 target for Drake May. Drake May hasn't had a receiver like this in his career, even if you go back to UNC. So I think absolutely. And then with the Eagles, like you mentioned, Jalen Hurts' accuracy dipped down a little bit. I think it's going to be a little bit of different play style because he's got 2 smaller receivers compared to A.J. Brown, so it's not really obviously Devontae Smith can go up and get a ball every now and then, but it's not as for sure as an A.J. Brown type of deal where you could just throw him a fade in the end zone corner.
Right.
So we'll see. It's still another huge question about
the Eagles went up and got Mekhi Lemon, right?
Yeah.
They traded up for him,
right? Yeah,
I think so.
And so you're kind of expecting him to be that for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it remains to be seen. It's another question. It's another year of questions about this offense. I mean, we know what the defense is. Haven't really dipped down in consistency really at all. But you've got a rookie with a lot of talent, but he still has to prove himself in the league. And a quarterback who's still iffy. A lot of people are questioning whether he's even a top 15, 20 quarterback in the league anymore. So it remains to be seen how well this offense can run.
Yeah, and I think that hopefully we'll get some more crazy trades as we go on along this week. But I think the juice of how crazy yesterday was is kind of all been squeezed, and I think that I don't know where else we can see a trade like those two happen in the next couple of days.